This is our latest installation on a Bronco Slipstream. So what we're gonna do is on a table, we're gonna put some of these parts together so it's easier than climbing in and out of your vehicle. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the left and the right wing walls, the left and right vertical frames. These actually go like this. So this flat part is facing forward towards the front of the vehicle, and your lower wall assembly. So the first thing we're gonna do is if you flip these over, we're gonna take out your 1/2 inch squishy foam roll, and we are going to cut and stick this right along here. So let me do this. I like to get it towards the front edge instead of up against the vertical, just so it's got better fitment for the wall going in. Okay, so now that that's on, what we're gonna do is we're going to take it and attach to these 3 main bolts here, holes in the middle of the wing wall. They match up with the 3 on the vertical. So they're gonna go just like this. This is where you're gonna grab your main hardware bag. This is the one that's got about 45 carriage bolts, nuts, and washers on it. So we're going to stick a carriage bolt through from the front. I always like doing the rounded edge down against the metal so it doesn't scratch into it. And these are nylock nuts, so you do not have to torque them down, but you just put them on tight most of the way so it holds it, so I can put the bottom one in. You can tighten them all the way down so you don't have to mess with them in a little bit. All nice and snug, hand tight. I recommend not using an impact wrench power tool just because you can over tighten these. And on some of the metal, depending on your torque setting, you could damage the metal or get the carriage bolt to spin and damage the square hole, which keeps it from spinning once it's all installed. Once again, once you get all 3 of them in, just go ahead and snug them down. So that's the end of that section right there. So the way this goes now is these are your vertical wing walls. This is your lower wall that goes up against the plastic in the floor in the Bronco, where you get that about 3.5 inches height difference. So this is making up for that height difference. So the way that we want to do this is we're going to put the wing wall over the top of the panel itself, 2 horizontal slots that this is going to go on and over just like that. And you're just going to get it to about 80% snug. You want to be able to move it for adjustment when the wall goes in. So you just want it to kind of be just a little bit of movement. And the way that you know that you have this 4-inch lower wall assembly correct is this slotted hole, this vertical slotted hole here is for the floor bracket. So this is where your floor bracket goes. You don't want this hole up here, you got it upside down, flip it around. So now the next thing is we're gonna take these 2 brackets here. The taller is what stands up, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set that, and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna lift this up, take a carriage bolt, stick it through in the Bronco on the floor. So as you can see, this moves up and down and left to right for adjustment. So this is your center wall panel. The lower side of it is where your small hinge holes are, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the access panel on first. So I'm gonna grab the access panel itself and the spacer bar. Now, people ask me all the time is they try and line these holes up with each other and it leaves a gap at the top. Well, those holes aren't supposed to line up with each other. They're supposed to line up with the spacer bar, which is the same thickness as the access panel, which then allows the hinges to sit flat. So here are the pieces to the access panel. You've got your access panel itself and the spacer bar. The spacer bar lines up with the lower holes. The access panel sits above that. So these hinges will go in just like this and sit just like that. So we're gonna set the hinges in place just like this. And this is where, it could be a little hard, try and lift this up and over, hold the hinges in place so the hinges come over so they're just like this folded. So what you can do then is you take a small washer and a small nut and spin it on. You should get 1 to 2 full revolutions on the nut before it engages the nylon inside it. If it's not going on, you're cross-threading it. Start over, back it off, line it up, spin it on, just like that. It should go nice and freely. I'm using a 5/16 dog bone. If you got a 5/16 wrench or socket, that's what you use. And again, you don't have to over tighten these. Once they're snug, they're on. So that's snug. So now what I do is I'm going to hold the hinge, flip it down like this, and then I'm going to stand it up and rotate it over so we can do the other side of the hinge, which you see right there. Now on this, because we went through an extra piece of metal for this end of the hinge, I keep the washer off and I just put the nut on. And again, you should be able to spin this at least one time around to make sure you're not cross-threading this nut onto the hinge post. So we give you this peel and stick magnet, and it's gonna go right here. You wanna center that up just over the opening, because this is where your cam lever on your lock is gonna go up against this. So instead of being on metal and scratching it, it's actually on a magnet. So I'm gonna peel and stick this on right now. Just like that, push it down with this in this position. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take that 1/2 inch foam roll and we wanna go to the top of this right here, down the sides. Put it right on the outside edge. We'll do a close-up on the other side when we're doing it. So right on this inside edge of the opening is where you wanna be with this. Get out of your way a little bit so you can see it. It's right along the top edge of the opening, right here. And you come right down this inside edge, all the way in, down to as close to the bottom as you can. So set it right across the top edge. Nice and square. That way when this goes over and down, it's not metal on metal, it's on the foam itself. So you'll notice that the cam lever is going outboard. We want it to go inboard. So the easiest way to do it is just pop this off. Be careful when you pop it off, because there is an O-ring right there. So for right now, I'm just gonna put this right back on top, keep my hand under it so the inner cylinder doesn't pop out. I'm gonna put the screw back in. So the other thing is, this is a press-in tight fit for the lock assembly itself. Meaning it might be really tight in here. If you want, you can take off a little bit of the powder coat. This is aluminum, so you're not gonna hurt it. If you wanna do that, that's fine. We're gonna put this through, and before I try and lock it into place, what I wanna do is I wanna make sure, might have to loosen it to get it through the hole, just don't take it all the way off. Are you the kind of person that wants to have this straight up and down with the lock in place, the cam lever straight up, or horizontal that way? So what I'm gonna do is, just so it's easier to see it, I'm gonna pop this up. I'm gonna hold the lock assembly itself with my thumb, so this way the inner tumbler doesn't come out. I'm gonna hold this, I'm gonna loosen this, I'm gonna take the cam lever off. Okay, so again, see the O-ring right there at the end? You don't wanna lose that, so be careful. So I'm gonna put the lock through. So like I said, it's a tight fit. I'm vertical with my key location. I want to have the cam lever towards the inside. You can see that it's tight right now. It's because we got to press through. You can actually hit this with a rubber mallet. We're going to basically go to where we want this to go through, and it's basically a press in fit, tight fit. So that comes through just like that. I gotta go a little further. If you want, you can check your lock, make sure it unlocks. Do that a couple of times and get it to where this is gonna be nice and flat. Again, if you wanna scrape some of the powder coat off, you can, but you're also not gonna hurt the lock by doing this. So it's nice and flat. We're gonna take the retaining nut and you can drop it over. At least you used to be able to. Drop it over the cam lever, and you're just gonna spin this on. If you end up putting the nut on too tight, you might find that it's tight on the lock, okay? So I do it mostly hand tight and snug it up, because again, it's a pressed in fit. Now, if you have the cylinder pop out and you put it back in through the outer cylinder and you find that the key goes in but it doesn't move, that means one of the 4 locations, being 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, that cylinder can go in, one of them is a complete lockout position. All you do is either rotate your cylinder or rotate the lock itself, okay? So with this in place, I'm gonna put that down, and it's always tight at first because of the new foam. Keys in, you can see where the cam lever sits on the magnet. So the next thing we're gonna do with the wall is the all new spin levers, or spin latches as they're also called on our website for the video. There's 6 of them. So we're gonna wanna grab 2 regular washers, 2 regular nuts, 2 carriage bolts, and 2 white large plastic washers. The plastic washer, set it over it. I'm gonna take the spin lever latch, and it's gonna sit flat on that with the vertical coming up and over towards the outside, okay? I'm gonna take a nut and a washer, and I'm gonna put that on, and I'm gonna snug it down to where you get a nice tight movement. That spins pretty easy just like that. So I'm gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And what we're gonna do is, this is the bottom of the wall. So now we're gonna come over and we're gonna take the wall assembly that we made, and we're gonna set it right over the top. So you can see that these vertical frames sit on the wall, and we're gonna hold it in place with the spin lever. We're gonna take 2 of them, and you'll notice that these holes down here, you take the pin and you slide it in just like that, from inside to outside. I'm gonna line this hole up. You'll have a little bit of a gap with your lower wall assembly. That's exactly what we want, so it's easier to fold the wall. So this pin goes in, latch it in place, just like that. Push down, now you got your levers on. So now this is your entire wall assembly that'll be easier to put into place than crawling in and out of the vehicle. We're gonna do one prep thing first. We're gonna put in the rear brackets that'll hold the side frames, which tie into your wall assembly. So with this being on the table, we're gonna grab these two L-shaped brackets and your manila envelope bag that's got 2 rubber pieces and 2 bolts. And we're gonna move around to the Bronco right now. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little prep work inside the vehicle. One of the first things you're gonna do is you're gonna pop off your forward D-ring attach point. So this cover, you put a small screwdriver down in, pop the rear, the round area, and as you lift that up, pull it out. So you're gonna be pulling that towards you so you don't damage these 2 little tabs. So again, this is sitting like this. You pop this up and then you pull out as you're lifting it. So that's what you do. And then you loosen with a 10mm socket the forward attach bolt. So right now I'm just gonna leave it right there so you can see it for now. The other thing that you're gonna prep while you're in here is you're gonna pull your 2 side panels. These just have tabs that pop in and out that line up. You're gonna pop these off. The smaller ones are for the soft top. Obviously this is a hard top, so we're not gonna use these, but they go in. Here's your 2 factory mount points right here, but they don't line up with the soft top bracket. But your soft top mechanism, the frame, attaches to these 2, and then you're gonna use the 2 upper bolts in that frame to attach this to. For the hard top, we want this bent piece going forward, okay? So here's your bracket, and that's gonna line up with these 2 bolts right here from the factory. Put a rag up here to fill right here, so in case you drop your bolt or your washer, it's not gonna drop all the way down into your side panel. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put these in place. So what I like to do is go through this first so you're holding it tight. So you got a hold of it, find your threaded factory location and start putting that in to hold this bracket, just like that. And then you're gonna do the same thing with the front or the rear, the opposite one that you need to. So that's the main side frames. Okay, so now we're gonna work on the rear brackets that mount here on both sides, left and right. Now, on a soft top, you're gonna pull that hook assembly out, okay? And then we're gonna put it back on after we put our bracket in place. So putting the bracket in is the exact same for a hard top and a soft top. You'll see that there's a factory nutsert in there. And what we have here is a piece of rubber that kind of just fits up in here to kind of make this nice and flat. We want this to be nice and snug for the metal bracket going in. So this is gonna go like this. In the soft top, you need to have this alignment pin slot open. It says rear main bracket. The front flat space needs to be towards the front. If it's the other way around where it's on the back side, you got the wrong side. So when this goes in flat, we want this forward flat piece towards the front of the vehicle. So all we're gonna do is set this in place and we're gonna tighten it all the way up. So these are an Allen head. So this is a 5/32 Allen head. And you're just gonna put this in nice and snug, Keep it nice and flat vertically, just like that. So that's your rear bracket on the driver's side. Passenger side, we're gonna do the same thing. So this flat face is towards the front of the vehicle. So we're gonna put this all the way in and snug it up nice and tight. So it's tight. As you pull it in, it pulls in your plastic wall too, because this bracket covers that, sucks it all in nice and snug and tight. Okay, so now we're gonna set the whole wall assembly in place, okay? So when I set this in like this, if you got somebody else that can help, that's great. We're gonna take it all the way forward, and we're gonna set this in place. It's gonna drop down in, and you'll see that this bracket sits right over the D-ring itself, so we're not eliminating the D-ring. I'm gonna put this bolt back in just to hold it snug, and then do it on the other side the same. And what you can do is, if you want, you can go ahead and tighten this down. This is sitting flat on your floor. If not, pull it down. It's slotted on this guy right here to allow that. So I'm gonna tighten this one up. So what's nice is with this all nice and tight, everything's down on the floor. Everything's lining up here with the skins and the top. So I'm gonna tighten up all three of these on both sides, just like that. So now your wall assembly is in. It's not complete, but what we're gonna do now is we're gonna grab some hardware, some carriage bolts, some nuts and washers, and we're gonna put in the side frames. So let me, don't move, I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab the side frames. So these are your side frames. These go horizontally. We want the gap in the flat to the end to be forward. This is what allows the folding top to move, so it's not in the way. So we're just gonna set them in place just like this. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the bag of hard rubber, 2 hard rubber strips, and we're gonna put them down on the flat section. The hard rubber is 24 inches long. It's about 1 inch longer than what the flat spot is. So we're gonna cut that off, and we're going to peel and stick, push it down so the adhesive grabs all the way to the very end. We wanna do that on both sides. And this is the next step, is you're gonna need somebody to help you, a second set of hands. You can see this upper hole right here goes to the bolt hole in the front edge of your side frame. So we're gonna hand that person 1 carriage bolt. You see that they push it through. I'm gonna grab one also, because as we do this, push that in and hold it, I'm going to stick one through this back edge here. So while that's there and I can grab it and they're holding the wall, and I'm gonna come in from underneath just to where it's snug and it starts grabbing, so that holds there. I'm going to do the same thing on the front. This is where it gets a little hard if you got big hands. I want to raise it up so it's as close to level with your wing wall as you can. So and I can hold this with my thumb. Take your socket, lift it up, because you want this to be level with your side frame. You can see I'm nice and flat with that, and about 1/8 of an inch off the ends. So that is our frame system for the enclosure. We're gonna grab the wing walls. That's these guys right here. The one with the additional indentation, that is the driver's side. This one's the passenger side. So we're just gonna set them just like that. I'm gonna grab the 2 tie-down rails. This little guy, the wire cover. So on your tie-down rails, there's corresponding square holes. You want the vertical part of your tie-down rail to be to the outside of the vehicle. This way, as you're folding the top, you're not pinching on this. So what you want to do is you set it up with the first hole. So they're offset a little bit, so that's the difference between left and right. Right here should all line up. If they don't, see how the two middle ones are off about 1/8 of an inch? These two guys right here, that means that is a right side, this is a left. See how the holes match up now? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this in place. Here's the thing that you can do before you get it in place, just so you don't have to reach underneath, is if you want, is put this on just like that, have it off to the side, take a nut and a washer. If you want to take an extra piece of foam and put that underneath it, you can. It's not really needed for this, but totally up to you. Because what this is going to do is, in the summertime, when you're moving between hardtop on, hardtop off, this just helps close this out. The one thing that Ford did is your wiring comes up and over the plastic and down into the cavity to plug into the temporary holding position. So you can pull the wire connector, the size of it, up and through to hook to your hardtop when you're attaching your hardtop back on the vehicle. When you're not running it and you want to put the wires down out of the way, is you do this and you can leave it open like this, or you can close it. Just make sure that you're not pinching the wires. This is more in the position when the wires are straight up and to the back of the vehicle, they're not in the way. So right now, they're kind of in the way, so we're gonna move this sideways for the open position, okay? And all we're gonna do is we're gonna set this up into place to where this sits perfectly on top of your frame channel. We're gonna line these up, drop these into place, put carriage bolts through it, and do front to back. Leave this rear one open because this is gonna be the hard top cover that goes and matches up with your tail skin. This will be one of the last steps putting this on. This rear cover does not go on if you run a soft top, because this is where your hook mechanism goes for your soft top. There's one bolt up here that I'm gonna need my handy dandy assistant for. He's gonna take the bolt, you can see where it drops in, spin that so the carriage bolt lines up. I'm gonna put this nut on this one real quick. I wanna put a bolt down in so it's at least lined up for when I go to put the rear panel in. So I'm gonna hold this with my thumb and I'm going to tighten this one up. Like I said, about 90% of the way, just so it's kinda got some grip to it. With these in place, I'm gonna go ahead and start snugging these down. Okay, now I'm gonna do the other side, do the same thing. Okay, so here's your large top, small top. This is where your hinges go, and your tail skin, which will go like this when we put it all together. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna attach the new spin handles like we did on the wall. So we're gonna grab the hardware from here. We're gonna take a carriage bolt, come up through the square hole by the hinges, plastic washer, spin handle, washer and a nut. Remember, I like to do the rounded edge of the washer down so it's not tight into the metal. And I'm gonna put these spin handles on all 4 locations. So 2 on the large top, 2 on the small top. And again, you're gonna get it to where it's just snug, to where you got a little bit of friction spinning it. just like that. I'm gonna flip these around. The hinges are easier to put on in the vehicle, so that way you get everything nice and lined up together. So we'll put those together in there. So now we're gonna flip this over. And just because we're right here, this will be a little bit easier. In this position, this tail skin goes in just like this. So with being able to put a bolt in through this end, I'm going to grab some extra hardware. So it takes 3 bolts, nuts, and washers to attach the tail skin. I'm gonna put this on just because it's easier to do at this position. And as you start to snug it up, you wanna make sure that this is pushed all the way up, because that's the perfect position on the tail skin. So when you see it on this side, I'll move around. You'll see that it fits in the middle. If you end up getting the folding top molly panels, you want to wait until the top is completely installed, tail skin, hinges, fitment, everything, because once you put the molly panel on, it covers the tail skin bolts right here, because that's the rivet points for the molly panels. So you want to wait to install those separately after you get the folding top complete. So now we're going to set up to install the big hinges. You will need a 10 millimeter socket for that hardware. So I'm going to take the 2 folding tops and I am going to move back around to the vehicle. Okay, so now we're getting ready to put the folding top in place. A couple of things that go on it. The first thing is this bulb seal. This goes on to fill the gap between the wall assembly and the folding top. So what you'll do is you'll pull it out of the bag and you're gonna stretch it across, not the hinge end, so this is the hinge end with the holes on it. We wanna go across this area here. So with this in place right here, I'm going to measure the width and cut this pair of scissors. And it is peel and stick. So again, simple and easy. End to end, just like that. So it fits. And then what we'll do is we will set this in place in the frame and push it forward. So that's about where that's gonna sit. You notice that you'll have about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch gap down the sides. That's perfect. Grab your other 2 quick release pins. What you want to do is make sure you don't have a mushroom end. Sometimes they're really flat on the end. If it's hard going in, it's going to be hard going in because it's hard rubber, new foam, everything. But if you want, you can file these down a little bit to put a little bit of an angle, like a bullet tip on it, to make them easier to go in. This is where we put them in on the forward side of the wall. So you're gonna look underneath, slides in just like that. If you hear a little bit of noise coming from the pins, it's not the pin that's loose, it might be the wire clip. Either take a piece of Velcro and run it between here and here, or one of those black ball bungee cords and wrap it from here to here so it keeps tension on this and there's no noise when it's moving. So now that this is in place, we're gonna take the small top and all we're gonna do is we're gonna set it into place and push it right up against the other one. If you want to hold it tight, just do your spin lever underneath so it holds. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take the large hinge bag, and this is a 10 millimeter socket for the nuts, the metric nuts. And we're gonna take this large hinge and we're just going to drop it down into these 4 holes in the folding top. And they're slotted holes, so we can go front to back and adjust it as we need it. The left forward post, tighten it up and come back to the right rear. So you're crisscrossing, tightening it down so everything goes in smooth and straight. And again, nylock nuts, you do not torque these nuts on, because you can rip out these posts if you try and over tighten them. If you cross thread them, you'll break the posts, the threads off also. So that's why it's important. Take a little bit extra time. It's only a few seconds just to make sure that you've got these on properly to where they spin freely, about 2 rotations, and then you're good. So now I'm gonna take 10 millimeter. And you'll notice that there's a little bit more gap on the right side than the left side. On the sides right here, all that is when you put the top on and then you put the pins in, pull your pins out. Again, these are the ones that go on for the hard top only. Again, if you got the soft top, your rear hooks fit down in here with your crossbar for the soft top. So when these are in place, so now we're gonna pop this bolt out, put this in place, and see how it's snug in here. It is recessed on purpose because we've gotta pull it in to come around this plastic bump out. And as you tighten this, you'll see that it'll spin a little bit on this. Just try and make sure you keep the same gap between the tail skin and the folding top, so that when you do the folding top, you're not hitting this. So when this tightens up, you can actually move it a little bit by hand to keep your gap. All of these side bolts here down the side frames, I'm gonna tighten them up right now because our folding top is in a good position. So now that all these are tight, you notice that we got a little bit of movement here. So there's a couple of things that you could do with this. You can do one of 2 things. You can adjust the latch. It's a little bit more gap. So you can, if you've got a vise, you can bend this tab up a little bit so it connects sooner. Or the easier thing is to actually take a couple of pieces, that hard rubber that I cut 1 inch off of. This is perfect to peel and stick on the end of that hard rubber. Or you can use the soft foam if it's not quite 1/8 of an inch. So that's on there snug. And now that's really snug on the latch. So now one of the other things is we give you an edge seal. And what we do is we put that on here. This is to protect your tailgate. I like to keep it on the flat part before it starts the radius, so it's always on a flat. I do the outside edges first if you've got a hard top. If you got a soft top, you're obviously not doing it on these 2 outer pieces. But I'll show you the middle in just a second. So just like that. So one thing you'll notice is on the Ford Bronco, there's this rubber grommet here, like it's a drain plug. No idea what this is for up here since wiring is all accessible down through this. But when you put this edge seal on, you're gonna find that it will pull off as you open and close the tailgate. So if you go off your middle bolt on the tail skin, we want to leave about a 2-inch gap to clear that. So we want to come about 1 inch past the middle of that bolt and stretch this across the back. So that will stay on there. As you start to close the tailgate, how this will line up perfectly. So a couple of last things we need to do. I'm gonna pick up all the hardware here so we're not missing anything. We're gonna do a walkthrough on a couple of items. Okay, so a couple of final steps. After you've got all this done, you've checked, make sure you're good on your tailgate. Make sure that this is not touching as it's going up into this. That's why this, when you install the tail skin, we want to push it all the way up so that way it fits the groove perfectly. So now you want to make sure that you've got all your hardware tight, okay? All your carriage bolts down the side frames, in the wall, you know, your pins are in nice and tight. Everything's nice and snug. So when you're moving this around, you're not hearing anything. The last things to do is to put these back on. Now, a little trick is when you put this in, it's going to hit that bracket in the floor. It's only 1/8 of an inch thick. But what you might want to do is take a pencil and mark where that bracket is. It's only 1 inch wide and about 1/8 of an inch deep. And you can trim this. You can just notch that out, take that little piece. It'll sit there like this normal, but it's not going into picking up those 2 clips in those corners because that 1/8 of an inch bracket right there. So if you mark where your bracket is and notch out this plastic, that'll fit perfect inside, okay? We get asked, does it fit with the factory floor mat? So, it's still spot on. So, drop that down below that. Fits like it was meant to be for the Ford from the factory. So one of the other things that we'll show you real quick is we'll show you the access panel. Let me close this a little bit so my assistant can walk by. Say hello to Brandon, everybody. So what's nice about our system is not only is it a folding removable wall, a folding removable top, you can actually keep 2 belted passengers in the large seat, put the small seat down, the 60-40 split, and you have full pass-through. So if you want to put skis, long stuff, you got to make a run to Home Depot and get a couple of 2x4s, you can do that by just putting 1 seat down without moving the wall. So that's a nice feature of that, and it's nice and secure having that locking access panel. And then the other thing is, we'll move the camera around just so you can see it, is this works with the seat in both positions, the standard position and the recline. In the recline position, the seat is right up against the back of the wall. Perfect tight fit. Okay, so now when you want to fold the entire wall down, all you're going to do is reach in here, grab your spin lever on both sides, lift it up, and your wall will fold completely open. Okay, so now when you want to fold and remove your top, it's real easy. All you're going to do is reach under here. You're going to spin the spin latches out of the way. You're going to do it on the rear panel first, then you're going to do it in the middle on both sides. Now you're pretty much ready to come out, except for pulling your pins, which are just the 2 forward location ones. And once you get those out, this top comes out that easy. All right, so if you get the roll bar molly panels and you want to install them, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out these 2 bolts from the slipstream. This is the brackets for underneath that attach the hard top or the soft top. Pull those 2 bolts out. We're showing you this on a hard top, so it's a little bit easier to see. But you're basically going to take your roll bar molly and it's going to line up there, and also with the factory nutsert in the roll bar. We're going to supply you a bolt because there's no bolt here. Attach this here, then you can push this into place. It's going to be snug, and we're going to line up these 2 holes to put those bolts back through. I'm going to try and remember seeing where that bolt hole was. So it's right about there. So these 2 carriage bolts go back into their normal position. So now I'm gonna put the two nuts and washers back on from the underside, and now you have a fully mounted roll bar molly system. Come in, put your nuts and washers back on the underside, and all you're gonna do is tighten them back up. And tighten your 13 millimeter roll bar bolt, and now your roll bar molly panels are nice and secure along with your slipstream system. Okay, so just a helpful tip when you're done with all of this, if you find that you've got a little bit of rattle, I mean, everything back here is solid, but if you start getting a little bit of zzz, noise from your speaker, you'll notice that this skin, when looking from this way, it moves a little bit on your body tub. What you can do is you can always take a small piece of the foam or hard rubber or those little cabinet clear little nubs and peel and stick them underneath this. So if it's touching any metal and making noise, just put a little piece of foam on it. That's all you need to do. Okay, so now that you've got the driver's side roll bar molly on, you're gonna do the same thing to this side. You're gonna pull the two Slipstream mainframe mount bolts out. You're gonna set the roll bar back in place, the roll bar molly, and you're going to attach it to the roll bar with the supplied 13 millimeter head bolt that we give you. And you're gonna put your two carriage bolts back in, down through this, tighten it up with your nuts and washers. So that's the other side to do your install on your roll bar mollies. Okay, so now that we've completed the Bronco Slipstream 2.0, we call it 2.0 because we've added the 6 spin levers to this, spin latches, just an easier way to fold the wall down, fold the top, remove that, so you still have a great enclosure but easier functionality to it. You know, you're just ready to use this thing any way you want. We've got some great additional accessories that we're actually getting ready to install on this. We're gonna do the roll bar molly panels. We're gonna do the visor shelf. We're gonna show how the stage goes in to level the floor out as an option. And then we're also gonna put the marine deck mats on the folding top. So this is gonna be a full-on all accessory build, and we want you to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and continue watching us doing our install videos and just showing people how you can have the best system for your Bronco that's made here in the US. So once again, Diabolical Inc, check us out, follow us, call us with any questions. We are here to help you.